All right, everyone. Jeremy Knopf here with another episode of the Public Relations Declassified Livestream. All right, so we had a little skipped week here, battling a flu last week, but I'm back on the mend and back into things. So, whoops, hold on, got something clicking here. All right, so we got a couple of things we're gonna jump into here, and if we've got time, we're also going to talk a little bit about the Cracker Barrel failed rebrand, which was an absolute shit show. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we'll open up with the first segment here. We're going to talk about phrases that you should avoid if you want to be seen as authoritative and trustworthy. So, and by the way, guys, let me know if if everything's looking okay. I know we had some tech issues last week before last with X. Some of my numbers aren't quite looking right here. So just shoot us a comment and let us know if you're seeing us everywhere: Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, X, all of that. All right. So we're going to talk first about some of the phrases that you need to avoid if you want to be seen as authoritative and trustworthy. So there are certain things that people say, things that are very common that can actually hurt your credibility. So one of the first things, and I think this is one that we all know about, we all have different versions of the word that we're going to use in this case, or the phrase, but filler words are a huge part of this. So things like or you might just kind of like make a little noise, or you're just filling the space when you don't have something, when you're trying to think of a word, or you're trying to you're in between pauses, whatever. That tends to make people doubt your credibility because it makes you look nervous, and nervousness often makes people feel like you're trying to hide something, or that you're not being completely honest with them, whatever the case may be. So we want to avoid the filler words. Now, that's something that you're not just going to get up one day and say, I am never going to say in a conversation, in a TV interview, in a podcast interview. Like, that's not going to happen because let's be honest, it's a habit. Part of it is just the fact that we've used it so often. The other part of it is when we do get nervous, that's something we use to fill the space, right? Humans often have an aversion to a gap in the conversation. They have an aversion to silence. That's why it's such a powerful tactic when it comes to sales, right? You present your offer, and then you pause, you wait. And the rule of thumb is the first person that speaks loses, right? So there's a reason for that. It's a psychological factor. So another phrase we want to avoid is I think, or I believe. Now, there are going to be cases where those words will be okay, or those phrases will be okay, rather. But for the most part, you want to avoid that because you're demonstrating a lack of certainty. Now, if you're talking about a prediction, let's say, for example, this morning I was interviewed by Forbes about the Cracker Barrel rebrand. In that interview, if I had said, oh, well, I think this is how things went, then it would show that I don't really believe in what I'm saying. I'm not really confident. Now, if you're talking about a prediction where, for example, I did talk about how certain things may play out as a result of this failed rebrand and the public backlash from it, then it would make sense to say, I think, or I believe. But in general, you want to avoid that. Another one is what I would call validating seeking phrases. So the phrase, or right, or things like that. So a lot of times you'll see people make a statement, and then they will end that statement by saying, or right. And they're basically looking for validation from the person that they're speaking to. So we want to avoid those because those also damage your credibility. One of my big pet peeves is the phrase, I'll be honest with you. Okay, well, what the fuck were you doing before? We don't want to say, I'll be honest with you, because that even though logically we know it's not the case, that subconsciously tells people, well, maybe they weren't being honest before. And the last one we'll touch on here is anything related to whining about fairness, right? If you're talking about, how something is not fair in your industry, if you're talking about how something is not fair to you, that can damage your credibility, except in extreme cases. So Google might be an example where it could make sense to talk about the lack of fairness because it's essentially a monopoly. They control, I think it's like 96, 97% of all internet searches or something like that. It's an outrageous percentage. So they control most search activity on the internet. They control whether you get seen or not. And they've basically taken over everything and set it up to where not only are they controlling all of the search and all of that kind of stuff, but also rather than sending visitors to websites, they are now more often sending them to their own other Google properties. So that's definitely a case where it could make sense to talk about fairness. But for the most part, if you're whining about fairness, it does damage your credibility because the reality is business is cutthroat. Some of it's luck, some of it's skill, some of it's relationships, some of it's capital. There's a lot of factors that go into this, but there's no such thing as fairness in the world. That's just not a thing. So stay away from these phrases. They will hurt your credibility. They will make you look less authoritative. And apparently my dog is getting involved in something over here. All right. So we want to avoid these phrases because they will hurt our credibility. They will hurt our authority. And that's going to impact what we can achieve, right? It will make it more difficult to get featured in the media. It will make it more difficult to create real impact in our industry. It will make it more difficult to serve our clients as effectively as we could. So avoid them and make a habit of practicing the act of avoiding them, because that's something that's going to take work. It's not just a thing where you just think, oh, well, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to stop saying these phrases. You have to actively practice it. All right. So our next segment, we're going to talk about how Dominoes Pizza delivered a near perfect brand turnaround. Now, this is kind of an interesting topic in general, but I especially like it on the heels of the failed Cracker Barrel rebrand, which was an absolute disaster. So give you guys a quick overview of the situation. Back in the 80s, Dominoes Pizza was the fastest growing franchise business in the entire country. And following this meteoric growth, the brand basically fell off the map because people hated their pizza. So they ended up taking a really unique approach to this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play a quick video for you. This is about 4 minutes or so long. I'm going to play this video for you. Kind of runs through some of the behind the scenes stuff related to this thing. And then after that, we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit more about how it all played out, what they did, and how those lessons can apply in your own business.
There comes a time when you know you've got to make a change. You know, you can't lead a company like this unless you love food. I love food. I love pizza. It was about 50 years ago that they started the first store just about 5 miles from here.
Two brothers had a great idea, and they also said they wanted to get it delivered within 30 minutes, and that's something that no one said could be done. In fact, the first pizza delivery vehicle for our company is that vehicle right there. Around the 80s, we were exploding. We were the fastest growing company in the history of franchise business. Nothing had ever grown like that.
Now we're almost 9,000 restaurants around the world. We love what we do at Domino's.
Pizza, where's the love? How hard? Bread, sauce, cheese, fresh ingredients. Doesn't feel like there's much love in Domino's Pizza.
Domino's pizza crust to me is like cardboard.
Is it hard to watch this stuff?
Yeah, it's hard to watch.
I hear what some folks are saying about our stuff.
Oh, this one's bad. Worst excuse for pizza I've ever had.
The sauce tastes like ketchup.
Totally void of flavor.
You know what? When you first hear it, it's shocking.
The cardboard complaint is the most common one.
This we hear over and over and over.
I mean, that hits you right in the heart. This is what we've done. This is what I've done, for 25 years now.
You can either use negative comments to get you down, or you can use them to excite you and energize your process of making a better pizza. We did the latter.
Most companies hide the criticism that they're getting, and we actually faced it head on.
Some people didn't get us credit for the taste of our product. That's what we're fixing.
We listen to our consumers and they want us to be better and we want them to be happier. We want people to love our pizza.
This is what's driving us. This is what's lit the fire under us. This is what's making us want to get better.
Pizza.
This is what's driving us. This is what's lit.
Didn't get us credit for
Whoops. I don't know what's going on here. We seem to be having a little glitch here. I'm going to go ahead and try and jump that back to where it was.
The criticism that they're getting, and we actually faced it head on.
Some people didn't get us credit for the taste of our product. That's what we're fixing.
We listen to our consumers and they want us to be better and we want them to be happier. We want people to love our pizza.
This is what's driving us. This is what's lit the fire under us. This is what's making us want to get better.
Who are we?
Pizza! It's been crazy down here. We had our best chefs working hard to find the best combination, looking at.
All right, I guess technology is not going to cooperate with us today. Video seems to be glitching here. Not sure what's going on there. Not the end of the world. You guys got the gist of it. Essentially, the brand did the opposite of what most would do. Rather than running away from the criticism, rather than telling people they're wrong, they embraced it. They used, you saw the focus group videos. You saw what people were saying. They took that to heart. They went back and worked on improving things. They even used a lot of these focus group videos in a lot of their ads back in the day. And they talked about how they were trying to do better. They were working on getting things back to what people expected. They completely reworked all of their recipes. And then they took it a step further. They reached out to the critics, the people who were complaining about their brand, complaining about the taste of the food, the texture, all of that. They reached back out and they encouraged them to give the pizza another try. And then from there, as they've done all of these things to fix the problem and then communicate the problem or the solution to the problem to these critics, they then leaned heavily into social media and technology to get real-time data, right? They're getting feedback from people instantly, and they're using that to continue to modify everything, right? Modify the recipes, modify the flavor, modify the customer service, every aspect of the brand interacting with their customers. They were improving that based on real-time feedback that they were getting from social media, and they were getting from reviews, and they were getting from, various other pieces of things that they were using technology for. So super effective approach. And the outcome was, first of all, the pizza got better and people started liking it again. And that was huge. But even bigger than that was the fact that people respected the fact that the brand came out, admitted that they fucked up, and they took steps to fix it. And they were actively seeking feedback. That's something that most companies don't do. And this was, because of all of this, this was one of the most successful brand turnarounds in history. So I want to put this in context for you guys. So this is Dominoes Pizza's stock. Now, I got the little marker here as close as I could to the beginning of 2010. That was when this whole thing started. And, you look at the stock and it was pretty consistently level, and even it started declining after about 2007. But there was no real big movements. Following the rebrand, they went from, it was about $9 and change per share. And now today it's over $451, right? That is insane growth. But it doesn't stop there. It's not just the stock price. Look at their market share. All right. Let me blow these up here a little bit. I don't know if you guys can see those well here, depending on your screen size. Let's check this out. Boom. Nationally, Domino's controls almost half of the entire market. That's insane. Okay. But that's because they built a brand, or rather they resurrected a brand and made it what people wanted, right? If you look at a company like Cracker Barrel, who just had their failed rebrand, what was their initial response? They turned around and said, oh, well, we just have, a vocal minority of people who are upset about this rebrand. It's just a few people who are upset. And then after just a few days, they had to pivot to, okay, we hear you, and we're scrapping this rebrand. So two completely different scenarios. Domino's listened, Domino's made changes and just leaned all into it. Cracker Barrel initially dismissed criticism. Fortunately, they did learn, and I'm betting that they were looking at how the whole Bud Light thing went. If you guys followed that, that's something I covered a lot, both on the live stream and on X. Bud Light absolutely decimated their own brand with this particular approach of not listening to your customer base. So this is a great example of how to really use customer feedback to better your business, because at the end of the day, whatever your customers feel about your brand is reality. What you feel about it doesn't mean a goddamn thing. So you have to pay attention to what your customers want. You have to pay attention to what your customers feel about your brand. And if they don't like your brand, they don't like something you're doing, they don't like the product you're putting out, they're not happy with the service, whatever the case may be, if they are not satisfied, you have to either do things that will make them satisfied, or you have to find a different target market that likes what you've got. And those are your only two choices. There's no way around that, because at the end of the day, the consumer decides what your brand is really all about. All right, so next up, we are going to talk about how to leverage a podcast to become a recognized authority in your industry. Now, this is something that I'm pretty passionate about. And when I say podcast, this also would encompass a live stream. Basically, it's one in the same. The only difference between a podcast and a live stream is that a live stream obviously is live, and a podcast could be live or pre-recorded. But a live stream, even after it's streamed, it's still available online afterwards. So for all intents and purposes, you can use the two words interchangeably. But this is something that's incredibly valuable from the perspective of becoming a recognized authority in your industry, because it gives you the chance to really go deep on a topic. You may have people who are listening to your podcast while they're working out or while they're driving, or it could just be on in the background while they're working. And you've kind of got a captive audience because of this. Now, if it sucks, they're going to tune out. They're going to click next and go on and find something better. But if it's good, you have the chance to really go deep. Look at something like a TV interview. You've got maybe 2 to 5 minutes in most cases, and you don't get a chance to really go deep into your knowledge. But with a podcast, you can sit here and just really talk about very complex topics in your industry. You can go deep into not only that topic, but then how that topic could potentially affect other people in your industry or people connected to your industry. So it really gives you a chance to demonstrate the depth and the breadth of your knowledge in a way that most other formats can't, right? We know that people aren't going to sit down and read. Most people are not going to sit down and read a long article these days. Most people, if you're on TV, you're not going to have a long segment. So this is a very good opportunity to really showcase who you are. And another benefit of it is that it also demonstrates your personality. And that's huge, because people want to work with people they like. And when they get a chance to know you, they see your personality, they're going to see if you're somebody that they want to work with. Now, of course, that's going to turn some people away, and that's okay, because they're not your people anyway. So you're not really losing anything. So what we're going to do is I've got a guest we're going to bring up here, a good friend of mine, Adam Bird. And you guys have seen him on a few of the previous episodes. Chris, if you can go ahead and pop Adam's camera on, please. So Adam is a good friend of mine, fellow veteran, and he is also the owner of a podcast network called Heroes Media Group that hosts a shitload of great podcasts on a variety of topics. In his case, all of theirs are hosted by veterans, but it's not just veteran-themed topics. So, Adam, brother, thanks for joining us again today.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Always a pleasure.
Good to see you. So let's start off by talking about strategy, because this is the foundation of everything. And I think it's an area that a lot of people get wrong. They either have a shitty strategy or they don't have a strategy at all. And they're just like, I'm just going to start a podcast.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is record something, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about, when you're approaching a new podcast, what do you think of when it comes to strategy?
Well, when I'm talking to people, my first question to them is why do you want to start it? If it's a small business, if you're a small business owner and you're looking to promote your business or any of the products that you have, or interview people, clients that you work with, okay, there's part of your strategy there is that if you, and we deal with some shows that, hey, I just want to show up with my friends on a Friday night, get drunk and talk about football, girls, and whatever else is going on in the world. Okay, but where do you want the show to go? And my second question that I asked him is, do you ever plan on monetizing your show? Do you ever want to make money from your show? And 9 out of the 10 times it's a yes. Mm-hmm. So once you get those two things figured out, then it's like, okay, how often do you plan on doing the show? Are you on social media already? Have you come up with, and then I go through a list of things of to engage where they're at right now with the show.
Yeah. And the question you asked first, where do you want to go with this, or where do you see this going?
Yeah.
Expand on that a little bit, because I don't think most people really understand exactly what that means, because they just think, well, I get the podcast up and running and then it's there.
Yeah. A lot of people have this tendency to think, I'm going to start a podcast and I'm going to be the next Joe Rogan. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I mean, that's, everybody's got to have a dream, I try to be as realistic, and you know me for a while. I tend to be blunt. I tell people, if you're going to start a podcast, it's a part-time job. All right. And it, you need to be consistent. You don't have to do a weekly podcast, but I would say do it at least bi-weekly.
Yeah. Let's put that in context. You say it's a part-time job.
Yeah.
For the average podcaster, how much time do you think it takes to put together, say, a weekly episode?
Well, so that's a great question. How long is the episode? If the episode on average is 20 to 30 minutes, I tell people try not to go over the 30-minute mark, because if you look at the national average drive time in the United States, it was about 26 minutes. And that's where about 90% of podcasts are consumed to and from their drive to work, or if you're house cleaning or you're on the treadmill at the gym. So if you can stay within that 30-minute mark, you'll be fine. But you got to sit down, you got to do the show. You got to come up with the show notes. A lot of times, if depending on the show, if you're doing a show like we're doing, like it's an interview type show, you got to reach out to the people and then set up the time when it's, set up a time where you can interview the person. So you're talking several hours of just putting stuff together to get the show going. Then you record. And you're like, all right, afterwards, now you have the post-production side of it. How fancy do you want to be? I want all these shiny lights and blah, 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 blah. Or just be organic. Just be like, we're cutting it. We're dry. I might put an intro and an outro on the front and back of it. And then I want to do some solid show notes. And then I have to post it. Great. Now that you've posted it, are you done yet? No, because now you have to go out and build your audience, right? And when you build your audience, what does that mean? I say it's known to build your audience. I say build a community is what you really want to do. Build a community, because if you have people, you can have 100,000 followers. And I'm going to say this is a very unpopular thing to say, but I'm going to say it because that's who I am. You can have 100,000 followers on social media, and you got less than 0.1% engagement on it, and nobody's going to care. But people are going to look at you and be like, well, Adam, you only have like 5,300 followers. Yeah, but I have a 63% engagement rate month over month on average over a 90-day period. So if you're a salesperson or if you're a company and I'm asking you, Jeremy, I want you to sponsor Heroes Media Group. Here's our engagement rate. Are you going to look at the engagements, or would you rather see the higher numbers with nobody looking at them? You see what I'm saying?
Well, you and I have known each other long enough that you know exactly what my answer is on that.
Right. So,
by the way, I love that you based the length of the podcast on actual data. That is something so few people do.
Yeah, and here's the other thing, and that data has changed a little bit over the last couple of years. And then you look at podcasts as a whole. As we're sitting here, in an hour time frame, there's 3,000 podcasts that have started, and by the end of the day, 7,000 of podcasts that were out there are no longer going to be anymore. It's a constant change, and people have said, podcasting is it's new. It's not going to be the next thing. I still think that podcasting, we haven't even scratched the tip of the surface yet with podcasting. Over the last 3 years, I'll say 5 years, you're starting to see more companies go more towards advertising with podcasters and stuff. The problem is they want the Joe Rogans, they want the big companies, and a lot of these what I call mom and pop podcasts, some of the smaller guys, they think, well, I don't have the downloads. I laugh at that. I have shows that are getting less than 1,000 downloads a month, and they're paying their mortgages because they have the engagement. They've created a community with their show. And once you do that, the sky's the limit. I can teach you how to create a community with a podcast. Doing the podcast side of it is almost the easy part of it if you, one, have the time to do it, and two, know what it is that you want to talk about. And let me talk about that real quick, Jeremy, if I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talking about what is it that I want to talk about? If you have a show that's going to go more than 45 minutes, if the vibe is more than 30 minutes, excuse me, if the vibe is good, you can go a little bit longer, or you could stop that episode and turn it into a 2-part series. So now you're creating more content for yourself, which ultimately is making your job easier in the long run. So you're not stressing out about, I got to put a show out this week or the next week or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to back up here because I mentioned, am I done once you do the show? No, now you got to promote the show. You got to get it out on social media. And how do you do that? Video is they say, video's king. Talking to a guy that's got a face for radio, I love doing audio. Okay. That being said, video, I said this years ago, video will never take over the audio side of it. And if you look, more than 80% of the podcasts that are listened to, actually it's closer to 90%, people listen to the audio versions of the podcast. But they find them through the short clip videos that you see on YouTube or social media. Do the short clip videos, the 5 to 7 to 10, 15-second short clip videos promoting whatever it is, or do the video clip from that episode, and then use that to drive traffic to the audio.
Yeah. You touched on Joe Rogan a few times, and there's a facet of this that I find fascinating that a lot of people get wrong. They all think, oh, well, I want to go and have, like you said, then I want to be the next Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
But they don't want to put in the Joe Rogan work. And so there's a stat, maybe you remember it. Off the top of my head, I don't. There's a particular number of episodes that most podcasts get to and then stop. And I think it's like 12 or 9. 5? 5. Holy shit. All right.
5 to 7. And then they.
Okay. And so that really highlights an important aspect of this, is that you have to be invested in this for the long term.
Yeah.
But too many people go into it and they're like, oh, I'm going to go be the next Joe Rogan. Yeah. And they put out a few episodes and they don't get the traction that they want. And then they just give up. So let's talk about the role that consistency plays and how you can avoid that being an issue for you.
That's a great question. I'm gonna go. I start off with new podcasters. Okay. Mm-hmm. Before you even get started, you need to present me with a list of 10 episodes that you want to talk about. And under each episode, have 1 or 2 bullet points with subcategories for each episode. because you can have it. Let's say you have underwater basket weaving. How do you get started? And whatever, right?
Yeah.
I can take the one episode plus the 2 subcategories under that episode, and I can show you how to create 3 full episodes from that one episode. If you can show me a list of 10, I can show you how to create content that will last 6 months. That's the first thing. Most people are just like, oh, what are you going to talk about? Oh, we're just going to talk about this. Great. What are you going to talk about next week? I don't know yet. Then don't do it. Like, have stuff planned out. And this is why I tell people and this is actually a requirement for me is you have to show me 3 full recorded shows before I'll work with you, or before we even get your show launched. Our launch process at HMG is when we're signing on a new show, we have the show do 3 full episodes first, so they're ready to go. So it takes the stress off of them when they're trying to create it moving forward, and then we keep them on schedule. So if you got a show coming out this Friday, next Friday's done. You're 3 weeks ahead already. So Monday when you go to record, you're recording for a show that's not coming out until a month later. Keep ahead of the game. It makes your life that much easier.
Yeah, and for most people, I think that should be a fairly straightforward process. For most people, when they're doing a podcast, they're talking about a topic or they're interviewing somebody. That's something that's basically evergreen.
Yeah.
My situation, I run this a little bit differently. I talk about a lot of current things that are going on that relate to the PR industry.
Yep.
So a lot of times I'm putting together my outline, the night before the episode, right? The night before we're going live. And I will tell you, if that's not something you're super familiar with and you're not comfortable, that will fucking drive you crazy.
So you're bringing up a good point. Let me throw this in there. So I'm glad you're bringing this up right now, because you can have stuff that pops up that like, oh, Adam's agreed to come on today, so we're going to bring him on. So we're going to push this show. You can push all the pre-record because nobody's going to know.
Yeah.
Right. Nobody's going to know like, oh, hey, you're not following your schedule. Well, unless you publicly show your schedule, then you know what I mean? Like nobody, come on.
Yeah.
So that's the cool thing about it. Have stuff in the can. Or here's the other thing. Like you and I, I travel a lot. So a lot of the times what will happen is I'll put pre-recorded stuff in the can. So I say the can back end, have stuff ready to go where I can just grab and go while I'm on the road. Or while I'm on the road, I may decide to do an impromptu show and just pop up randomly and do something. That's the beauty of this. There's a lot of flexibility to it.
Yeah. One of the things I want to talk about is the difference between self-hosting with like a Libsyn or something of that nature versus going with a platform like yours, Heroes Media Group, or on the digital marketing side, you've got Webmaster Radio. There's one in the cannabis industry. I forget what it was, but there's a whole bunch of networks like yours. Some are focused on certain niches. Some are focused on some aspect that makes them unique or makes there a value to going to a platform like this. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between those two paths.
Sure. I tell people, how do you want to do it? You go out and get a third party and host your recordings through those third parties, and I'll still bring you on the network. We got a lot of people on our network that started with third party, whether it's a Libsyn or whomever, and you're paying for them to basically house your audio files. There's no promotional stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Going with a network, depending on who the network is and what they offer, I'll just use ours as an example. We help brand your brand. So like every Friday morning, I do a weekly wrap-up show. And if you did an episode this week, I'm going to talk about that episode eventually on the weekly wrap-up. It'll be just a 1 or 2 sentences. Hey, this is what they talked about. Go check it out. Here's the link. Boom. And I do that every week. And no other platform does that. That we've seen. And I've been doing this for over a decade now. We were the only ones that done it. I know the guys at Libsyn, Buzzsprout, and all those. you usually have to pay a significant amount of money to even get on their website's first page. I don't do that. I don't do that. I don't believe in that. I think it's my purpose is to help other people get to where they want to go. And we've been fortunate enough that now that we've got over 50 shows now that are on the network, and they all work within each other. Now they're going on each other's shows. Now they're getting invited. Some of them are starting businesses together. That never would have happened hadn't it been for the community that we have created within Heroes Media Group.
Yeah, and that's such an important factor, not just from a promotion aspect, but I look at that from an authority aspect. So if you're up here, you're doing your podcast, you're getting however many downloads you're getting, that's one thing. Yeah. There's still tremendous value in that. It still demonstrates your expertise, gives you a chance to, really come off as an authority. But to take that to the next level, and now you're showing up on other people and they're validating your authority and they're talking about how awesome you are and the things that you've done, the things you've achieved, that is an absolute game changer.
Yeah.
And if you're self-hosting, you don't have that at your fingertips like you do with a network. Like, like you're constantly introducing people, connecting people. So there's a very different relationship there. So it makes it a lot easier for the folks in your network to go and collaborate with the other folks in the network.
Yeah. Yeah. Many hands make light work, they say, right? And everybody that's on our network believes in the same mission. It's creating a positive environment, we're crazy enough to think that we're changing the world.
Well, I think you are. I mean, maybe not on a global level, but definitely, individual and community level. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that you guys use, whether it be just stuff you do yourself or stuff you do like for your members. What do you do to promote the podcast? Like we talked about some of the social media and taking the clips, which I don't know about you, but I've seen those clips becoming less effective. Like the traditional where you've got the one video and then the other video underneath. Those aren't as effective as they used to be, but editing it differently still is very effective, right? Like one of the things I found to be good is you take the full high res video and you cut back and forth between the two. But what else are you guys doing to promote your podcasts?
So from a network standpoint, with some of the services that we offer, like we do full blown editing and video editing and audio editing. So we'll take clips and we'll give them to the show, and that's theirs to promote. Mm-hmm. What we do is when I do the weekly wrap up show, we're tagging them on our social platforms so they can be seen. We've got any new businesses that I come across in my travels or whatnot. If they're looking for, hey, I got a podcast that I think you'd be great on, I do an introduction to the show host with that business owner. And if they do business together, great. That's on you guys, figure it out, whatever. That's kind of like the big things. I don't want to say the big things, but the more consistent things that we do. Mm-hmm. Some of the other stuff that we do is we do a lot of events. We do a lot of sporting events and conferences. And a lot of shows don't necessarily know how to get into different sporting events, or like NASCAR, for an example, because we've had people cover NASCAR several times this year. They'll call me up, hey, we'd like to go cover NASCAR in Nashville. Great. Then as the network, we'll submit media credentials for that show under the HMG umbrella. But then I tell them, like, listen, make sure you guys take a bunch of business cards or get one of those dot cards, a digital one, and make sure while you guys are there, network with the other media outlets and journalists and camera people that are there, and do that. So that's one of the things that I think is relatively has attracted a lot of people to us, is because we don't get turned down very often anymore. Mm. So, I mean, we don't always get it. And I tell people like, hey, I'm not guaranteed that you're going to get approved for credentials, but if you do, here are the rules. This is my expectation, and make sure you brand your brand while you're out there.
I love it. One of the things I have found to be really important in the promotion, which we touched on earlier, is consistency.
Yeah.
So, when I started my live stream, at first there wasn't really very many. I don't even remember, maybe Chrissy remembers, but I don't remember how many people we had on at any given time initially. And our stats today are not working properly, but usually like we're in the, 60 to 100 range live.
Yeah.
Any of our streams. But initially it was like next to nothing. And it was like episode after episode after episode of that. And it wasn't until I consistently stuck with this that it really started to grow. And then I also saw that as I consistently did this, then I also started to see the views grow after the episode as well.
Yeah.
So, YouTube is probably our worst performer, but I'll see, there might be a handful of people watching on YouTube live, but then over the next few days, it really starts to pick up, and then they're there forever. So they just keep growing.
Yeah.
And that consistency is huge.
Yeah. You got to be consistent. If you're doing a show, like, again, I do the HMG weekly wrap up every Friday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern time. And whether I'm traveling or whatnot, and if I, sometimes now what we do is I've opened it up to the shows to host it so they can get more exposure
Nice.
as well. That helps me out. I don't have to stress about it. So it's a win, right? But that consistency is key. If you're doing a show and you say, okay, we're going to do a weekly show, then have it come out, pick a day that you want it to come out, and be consistent with that in that time. If you do a live show, if it's like an impromptu, like you're going to go live, try to be consistent with your lives. Like I said, ours is 9 a.m. Eastern time every Friday morning. Not the greatest time to do lives.
No.
But I'm busy. Like that's the only time I got. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like a lot of people watch the live after it's been done. And again, it's really about once you get that consistency. Here's the other thing you really want to, as far as like building a community and stuff as well, with the consistency side of it. You want to be consistent in building that community within the show. Ask open-ended questions. Maybe do a poll. What do people want to hear? Or ask a question that's going to force, I don't want to say force, but for lack of a better word, like force them to respond with an answer. Ask questions. Get people involved. That's how your numbers start to go up. But again, it takes time, but you got to be consistent with it. It's doable. Let me tell you something, folks. You're looking and talking to a guy that dropped out of high school for a few months. I ended up going back to college, joined the military, was a single parent for 15 years, had custody of him. My mindset going through college was a D will get you a degree. If I can, and I had a learning disability growing up. I had a hard time reading and comprehending stuff. If I can do it, anybody can.
I love that, man. I want to touch back on something you were talking about the community.
Yeah.
One of the things I have found really effective in that is where people go wrong is they make the community all about themselves, as opposed to the way you approach it. You make it about them. You make it about the community. Yeah. So a tactic that I have found to be incredibly effective is, if you're asking them questions, ask them questions that not only give you useful data, but also highlight them and their expertise and what makes them useful or awesome to their clients.
Yeah.
So, a lot of times I will ask people, what is it that you want to be known as, the best in the world at? Well, that gives them a chance to talk about what they do and why they do it and what makes them unique compared to the other people in their industry who do the same thing. And so it's good for me, but it's also great for them because now as they're answering this, there's other people in that thread who could say, oh, hey, that person does this. I have this problem that they could solve. Right. And they connect there. So, when you look for ways to get this information from them, also frame it from the perspective of creating an environment that also helps them.
Yeah.
And that's a game changer.
Yeah, it's about them. That's the big thing for me. I never want to be the center of attention. Like even doing this interview,
I know, man. You fucking hide all the time.
I try not to do, and it's funny because I understand, and I'll say this now since you're right here in front of me, is like I see your post and I'm just like, man, but I'm the type that, you know, hides behind the camera. Like I'll direct and I'll like coach and whatnot. This is what you need to do. And I was like, all right, Adam, your turn. And it's like the lights come on, you're like, hey, how's it going? You know, you know, that's just me and my personality. Again, my purpose in life is to help other people get to where they want to go. I use my experiences to do that. I've been blessed that I'm still doing what I love to do. But when it comes to, you know, I'll give my shirt off my back to somebody if I have to. That doesn't bother me. I'll go I'll buy a new shirt. Doesn't, you know, whatever, you know. When you're asking people, and that's the one thing I loved about the community that we've created, because now it's like I see the interaction between the shows, and it's like, hey, I need your expertise in this, and like all of a sudden, like I just connect people.
Yeah.
And I give them a platform to do that and to reach a larger audience that, you know, maybe some of them wouldn't have the opportunity anywhere else to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. And I would agree with that, man. You are definitely a giver to the point where it's probably disadvantageous to you. But yeah. So listen, man, I love the insight you shared today. Lots of great information. For the people who are watching, whether it's live now or after the fact, how can they get a hold of you if they want to check out HMG or they want to connect with you on social media or anything like that?
I'm on all the social platforms, my personal account, or you reach me at Mr. Adam Bird. That's BIRD, like a bird that flies. Go check out heroesmediagroup.com, or you can send me an email, adam@heroesmediagrp.com.
Awesome. And Chrissy will drop links to all that in the chat here on Facebook shortly after the show. I encourage you guys, if you're looking at starting a podcast or you've already got one that you want to kind of ramp up and take to the next level, I encourage you to talk to Adam. Great guy, super knowledgeable, and he can definitely help you out with that in a big way.
Thanks, brother.
So, Adam, thanks for joining us, brother. It's always good to have you.
Absolutely.
See you soon, brother.
All right, man.
All right, take care. All right, guys. Whoops. Chrissy and I hit that button at the same time. All right. So we're going to talk real quick about the Cracker Barrel rebrand, and then we'll go ahead and close out with Jeremy's PR PSA. Also, quick note for all of the Spartan community members, we had to reschedule the community call last week because I was out with the flu. We're going to go ahead and set that up for this Thursday. And we will be talking about how to get your podcast listed in IMDb. Now, if you're not familiar with IMDb, that is the Internet Movie Database. But you can also get a podcast listed in there as well, which is huge. It can help create more authority. It can help your podcast show up in these AI tools. There are a lot of benefits to this. So that's something we're going to be talking about in the rescheduled Spartan community call, which we will do next Thursday. So I'll be sending out an email to our private community members, but just wanted to give you a quick heads up on that. All right, Cracker Barrel. Holy shit, what a mess this one was. So they had a rebrand that completely detached from their target audience, and predictably, their target audience overwhelmingly hated it. Initially, the brand made a huge mistake of dismissing what the target market was saying, right? Their audience, their customer base was saying, hey, guys, we hate this. And they were like, hey, no, you're wrong. It's great. Most people actually love it. Well, no, most people did not love it. They initially had a dip in the stock price, which has since recovered. It was like 10%, nothing crazy. But the longer term effect would have been an issue. I don't know if it will play out this way because unlike Bud Light, Cracker Barrel eventually saw the writing on the wall and said, hey, guys, we fucked up. They went ahead and rescinded that revamp last night. And they said, we're just going to go ahead and stick with the original brand. We're going to keep it the way that you guys want it. And that's the end of it. So had they not done that, the problem would have multiplied. They've already seen a decline in in-store traffic. People are not going to the restaurant as much. And as that expands, or had it expanded, that had the potential to create a kind of a snowball effect where as fewer people show up, now that makes even more people not want to go. And then it creates this compounding effect where fewer and fewer people show up, and then eventually the brand implodes. I don't know how it's going to play out now that they have rescinded the revamp. They still have to do something with all of the decor, because not only did they change the logo and all of that, but they also changed the menus. They changed the in-store decor. They made it very, I don't know, to me, it looked like a hospital cafeteria, not appealing in any way. So they're still going to have to undo all of that. They're going to have to get the menus back to what people want. But if they do all of that, then I think the brand has a chance of recovering. If they don't do that, I think things will continue to decline. I'm going to be keeping tabs on that, just like I've done so many of these other PR crises. And I'll keep you guys in the loop on that. But it'll be interesting to watch. They handled it poorly at first, but they pivoted rather quickly. Like I said earlier, I think they learned something from Bud Light's PR crisis, which they have still not recovered. So we'll see how it plays out over the next few weeks, next few months. And I'll probably come back to this one on a future episode. All right, so we're going to close out today with Jeremy's PR PSA, and that is the public, not you, decides what your brand stands for. If you don't like how it's perceived, it's all on you to prove who you really are. So at the end of the day, the public decides what your brand is about. And it doesn't matter how you feel about it. It doesn't matter what you think you stand for or how you think you should be seen. If you're not seen the way that you want to be seen, then you have to go out of your way to demonstrate who you really are. You have to convince your target audience that your brand is what you think it is. And often, as you go through that process, you'll find, well, hey, maybe we did drop the ball somewhere. Maybe we're not doing as well as we thought we were. Maybe the service is not as good. Maybe the product is not as good. Maybe we're not doing something that they want, whatever the case may be. So as you start to dig into this, you're going to find the flaws. You're going to find the things that are creating the separation between what you think your brand is and what your customers think your brand is. At the end of the day, if you're not willing to do that, if you're not willing to make the changes to make the people who you want to serve see your brand the same way that you see it, then your only other choice is to go out after a different target market, somebody who sees your brand the way that you see it. Those are really your only two choices. It's not fun. It's not fair. We talked about fair earlier, right? Fair doesn't exist. It's just the reality of the situation. So it's 100% on you to make sure that your audience sees your brand the way that you do. And the only way to do that is to give them what they feel that they want. All right, everyone. So that's going to be a wrap for today. Hope you guys got a lot of value out of this. If you did, I would love it if you'd invite someone to the group, share this with them. And if there's any particular topics you guys want to see us cover in future episodes, just let us know. You can drop those in comments on this particular thread, or you can just drop a comment into the Facebook group and ask a question or bring up a topic that you're interested in having me cover. So that'll be a wrap for today, guys. And I look forward to seeing you all in the next episode. Thanks, everyone.